I remember a number of years ago eating dark chocolate and spending all night awake, feeling like I was going to die, and I didn't know why it had happened, but now I do. Let's talk about oxalate. Before I get started, I have been thinking about setting up a community for anyone on the carnivore diet or on a highly meat-based diet, and in particular for people who, like myself, they may be postmenopausal, their carnivore journey isn't quite going the way that they thought it was going to go, those who are having issues with not losing weight, those who are having issues with oxalate dumping, histamine, all of the kind of things that I've been through, the chronic diarrhea, that sort of thing. I've just been thinking about creating a community where we can kind of get together and chat, and that maybe you might be able to get some help or some ideas from other people who have been through what you're going through. If you think that that's a good idea and it's something that you would like to do, I have a feedback form on my website, and I'll put the link to that below, where you can go and say, yes, I'll be interested, no, I'm not interested, and you can put a note in there with any suggestions. I am thinking about $5 a month to cover costs for it, and if I get enough interest, then I will set the community up. If I don't get enough interest, then I will put it on the back burner for a while, but it is something I'd really like to do. So if that's something that interests you, go and click on the link below my video and head on over to my website and just fill in that form to let me know, and then that way I can let you know if and when I decide to set this community up and open it up. Okay, and if you're looking for carnivore gear, t-shirts, hoodies, that sort of thing, a gift for your favorite carnivore, make sure to check out my Spreadshop shop, which the links are below. I think you can click on some of the products, I think they're below the video, or you can just click on shop and go and have a look. I've got quite a lot of designs in there and new designs going in on a fairly regular basis. Hi there, my name is Sue. Welcome to my channel if you haven't been here before. I've been eating a carnivore diet for just about 2 years. My 2-year carniversary will be in about 3 days. So today I'm doing a video talking about oxalate. Now, I haven't done any videos talking about this for a while, but I did a few earlier in my carnivore journey. This one here and this one here, where I spoke about the symptoms that I was experiencing because I think I was having a lot of difficulty due to oxalate dumping, or I know that I was having a lot of difficulty due to oxalate dumping. But as my journey's gone on, it's kind of got a little bit harder to know whether I'm oxalate dumping or not. But I'm starting to kind of recognize some new symptoms, I think. And I actually watched a video by Sally Norton just a couple of days ago, and that reminded me of some things, because I mean, through this 2 years, for those who watch my videos, you know that I learn about something, I dive into it, learn more about it, talk about it on here, and then next thing I know, I'm kind of onto something else, because it's just the way that my body's been and the things that I've been dealing with throughout this last 2 years. There's been kind of multiple things layered on top of each other that I've had to try and work out. So I actually bought Sally Norton's book probably maybe 18 months ago, and you can see I've got a whole lot of sticky notes in here. This is a worthwhile resource. I have a link to it below my videos. If you want to check it out, I highly recommend this book, because if you really want to understand what's happening with oxalate and oxalate dumping, then this is probably the best resource that you can that you'll find anywhere, I think. Because Sally is probably the most up-to-date person that I've come across on oxalates. There is another lady that talks about them as well, and I can't think of her name, but Sally's probably the best known in the oxalate thing, sort of subject. So for me, when I was early in the piece, like I had a lot of diarrhea. I had diarrhea prior to carnivore, had a lot of diarrhea for over 12 months, and I realized eventually that a lot of that was down to oxalate and oxalate dumping, and I could tell because it was acidy and it was sandy and it was uncomfortable. Plus, every time that it happened, once it started to kind of spread out a little bit. So originally it was like I was dumping just about all the time, and then I would have kind of little breaks where things weren't quite as bad, and I started to realise and recognise the symptoms that I was having. So back then I'd get a nosebleed, I'd get vulvodynia, I'd get diarrhea, my anxiety would go up, sometimes I'd experience depression, and not so much in the way of aches and pains. That's more happening now. So I think that what's happening over time is my body's pulling oxalate out of kind of different areas and getting rid of it in different ways. So originally, obviously, a lot of it was going through my bowel. Some people seem to lose more through their bowel. Some people lose more through their urine. Even though going through the bowel side of things is a real pain, especially if it goes on for a long time like mine did. I think it's probably the better way to go, because if it's going through the urinary system, you're at risk for kidney stones, and so I just wouldn't really ever want to have kidney stones. So I would rather have gone through what I've gone through, even though it's been really difficult, than to do it that way. And then some people get it a lot coming through their skin. So since my bowel settled down, I've been having more oxalate coming through my skin. I guess I did a video talking about oxalates coming out of my breasts, and that's still happening, but just little bits and pieces. Whereas when it first happened, the day that it first happened, it was en masse, and it was very kind of an out of this world kind of experience, and just felt really nuts. But it is what was happening, and I have some of those crystals still stored in a little container so that I can show people. They're a bit of an unusual conversation piece. So nowadays, what I'm finding is that I have kind of quite longish patches sometimes without too much going on. Although I think that was because I think it's been a bit better because I was having green tea every day, and I've stopped that now because I realised that the caffeine in the green tea was making my feet swell, which caffeine has always done, but I'd kind of not really realised that the green tea was doing that until I realised, and then when I stopped, and my feet have gone back to their skinnier selves. So the reason that happens, I looked it up, is that caffeine can cause vascular permeability. So it's allowing the water to leak out of the blood vessels and into the tissues, and so that's been happening to me since I was 15 years old. I didn't know what it was back then, but I realised, I think in my 30s, that caffeine was actually causing it. And so I had a lot of years where I didn't drink coffee at all, and I don't drink normal coffee. I drink decaf these days, but even that has that little bit of caffeine, and I could probably do without it. But I just love coffee, so I keep saying I'm going to stop. I don't know how many videos I've got on there saying I need to stop drinking decaf, and I still haven't done it. One day I will. So, but I did stop drinking the green tea, and I stopped drinking the yerba mate as well, because I realised that the caffeine was actually still actually having an effect on me, even though I was really enjoying the green tea. It was a really nice organic one that I was buying, and it was quite pleasant. But anyway, so having the green tea, having black tea, having foods with oxalate in can help to lessen your oxalate dumping. And so that's what I'm actually talking about here. So I had also stopped having black pepper and was basically having no oxalate for a while. But what I was finding is that I basically started oxalate dumping again. So what would happen was I'd wake up in the morning. This has happened a few times. I wake up in the morning and my toes are sore. And then I woke up the other morning and the top of my foot was really sore. Now, I've had problems with the top of my left foot off and on for years, and the top of that left foot actually swells all the time because it was injured quite a lot of years ago in my late 20s, and so it's always kind of got a puffiness to the top of my left foot, but it gets a little bit sore off and on. And I woke up during the night a few nights ago, and I could hardly move my foot in the bed. It was so painful. When I got up in the morning, it was really incredibly painful. Eventually, I put some DMSO on it and some castor oil, and that kind of seemed to settle it down. But it was very painful. It was really hard to walk on. And so I kind of realized, okay, so this is oxalate dumping, because I had not only had that, but I had a little bit of vulvodynia, which I hadn't had for ages, and all my back muscles were all kind of sore and burny. And so that seems to be more what's happening now. I had a couple of nosebleeds as well that same day, which I hadn't had for ages. But I'm noticing that my upper back in particular gets quite sore, and the muscles burn. So the burning, I'm assuming, is the oxalate, because it's acidy. And so, yeah, I'm assuming that's what that is. So I'm kind of adding some black pepper back into my diet. I'm been having some blueberries again, because I think they contain a little bit of oxalate. They seem to help. And yeah, just keeping a little bit of oxalate back in my diet. I keep thinking I'd like to get rid of all the plants. I said to hubby just, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, I said I might have a go at just getting rid of all the plants, the herbal tea and the supplements that I'm still taking, and but I don't think that that's going to work for me at the moment, because of the oxalate dumping. I think I just need to carry on with just that little bit in my diet, just to kind of keep things manageable, because I don't want to cause any problems for myself. And I prefer a pain-free or less painful existence, of course. And so, yeah, it can be a lot of years for oxalate to move out of your body. So that's kind of what goes on with me at the moment with the whole oxalate dumping thing. But listening to Sally's video the other day, I kind of really realized some of the things, I remembered some of the things I'd kind of forgotten about, and I really realized how alike her story and my story actually are. For example, she mentioned in the video that she had her tonsils out at the age of 5, and she wonders now whether that was oxalate, and that was me as well. I had my tonsils out at the age of 5. And she had back pain. I think she said at the age of 12, she was diagnosed with something in her spine. I started having issues with back pain probably around the same time, about 13, 14. So much so that mum took me off and took me to the doctor, and I went off and had an x-ray, and they told me that I had degeneration in my spine at the age of 14 or 15. And so, like I've spoken about how our diet when I was growing up, my dad was heading into a vegetarian diet from the time I was fairly young. And so our diet was very plant focused. Now, when I was little, we didn't have a lot of money. And so we ate a lot of potatoes, and being Scottish as well, good Scottish people, mince and taties. So we ate a lot of potatoes, we ate a lot of bread, we ate a lot of things like rhubarb. So rhubarb's really high in oxalate. And also because Dad was kind of fairly interested in health, I guess, I was probably one of the first kids that I was aware of to be taking vitamin C. So none of my friends used to take vitamin C that I remember back then, but we used to have the little vitamin C tablets. They were orange flavoured ones, and they were sweetened, I think, with saccharin. And they used to sit in the cupboard, and because I was the oldest and the sneakiest, I used to sneak in there and demolish quite a lot of them at one time, in one go. So I was consuming probably quite a bit of vitamin C off and on when I could get away with it. And so vitamin C converts to oxalate in your body. And so, all those years as a child when I was doing that, I was not only eating, the rhubarb and the potatoes and kiwi fruit. Kiwi fruit was another thing that we used to eat quite a lot of because kiwi fruit became really cheap here in New Zealand when they started growing it here, and it became known as kiwi fruit. It used to be Chinese gooseberries was the name it was commonly called here in New Zealand when I was really little. And then, they started growing it here and kind of marketing it as a New Zealand thing, and the name changed to kiwi fruit. And so now it's known as kiwi fruit or kiwi, and it is really high in oxalate as well. It has these pointy little shards of oxalate all around those seeds in the kiwi fruit. And so they are really super high in oxalate. So we used to eat a lot of those, and so probably quite a bit of our diet was reasonably was high oxalate, I think. And so for me, maybe because I already had kind of gut issues from the antibiotics I was on. I was on lots of antibiotics when my tonsils were bad, even when I was really little, before I had them out at the age of 5. And so, yeah, just with a not good gut health, and then eating all these high oxalate foods, I kind of suspect that was the beginning of my oxalate issues, even as a child. And Sally talks about that as well. And so, she talks about how she really liked vegetables as a child, and I really liked some vegetables, because I guess I was brought up on lots of vegetables and not so much meat. And so, yeah, I think that the oxalate was a thing for me even when I was little. So we also the other things that we used to eat a lot of was citrus, and because a lot of citrus is quite high in oxalate as well. And the rhubarb, we used to eat it with sugar. We would get, like, Mum would give us a cup with some sugar in, and we would go and cut rhubarb in the garden and eat it raw, and just dip it into the sugar and eat it. And so that was a popular way with us for actually eating rhubarb. And so I'm assuming that raw is probably even worse than cooked. And so, yeah, big lots of oxalate in that. Now, Sally was saying that oxalate can cause, of course, neurotoxicity. I think she talked about that in her book. And especially like with children, it can cause learning disabilities and behavioural issues and that sort of thing, because it can be affecting the brain and the nervous system. She mentioned how it can cause or contribute to dementia, anxiety, depression, and panic attacks. And so, as I've spoken about in my other videos, that's all kind of been a thing for me as well. So the anxiety and panic attacks and depression have been off and on throughout my life. The anxiety's pretty much always been there, and the depression has been a thing probably particularly since from the time I went through puberty. And I felt as though I was kind of heading into not dementia, but my brain wasn't working very well when I started on Carnivore, and I was aware of that. My cognition wasn't what it used to be, and my ability to comprehend information and understand and remember things had deteriorated markedly. Whereas now, 2 years into Carnivore, it is so much better. That's like night and day. The way that my brain's functioning now to 2 years ago is just completely different. Now, I've been doing some other things to kind of help that. I've been focusing a little bit on my mitochondria and taking some methylene blue. I've done a couple of videos talking about methylene blue. This is one of them, and this is the other one. And if you don't know what methylene blue is, go and check those videos out. It can help the mitochondria to function in a better way, and I have links to the methylene blue that I use below my videos if you want to have a look at that. It's an interesting substance. It's not a natural substance, but it is an interesting substance that's been around for about 150 years that can have amazing benefits. And I'm currently just taking 3 drops a day, and it seems to be really helping, I think. I've been taking it now for probably maybe 6 months or so, and hubby's taking it as well. And it's just, I think that it's making a difference. I might do a trial with not taking it for a while when we run out, and see if anything changes, because it's hard to know, whether is it the diet, is it the methylene blue, is it both? I actually suspect that it's both. So I really feel like my intuition is kind of telling me that just those 3 drops a day for me is making a difference. So oxalate is really, really toxic. As I said at the beginning of this video, I thought I was going to die one night after eating dark chocolate, and I didn't know why. I thought it was the theobromine, which is the caffeine-like substance in the chocolate, but now I actually suspect it was the oxalate. So what happened was I had bought some dark chocolate, peppermint one that we get here in New Zealand, and this was probably, I don't know, might have been 5 years ago. And as happened with things like that, if I did buy them, I would eat a lot of it. I didn't buy them very often, but I hooked into this dark chocolate, and I ate probably about 3/4 of a family bar of this stuff. So it's a soft center one, so the chocolate itself isn't all the way through, it's just on the outside. But when I went to bed that night, I could not get to sleep. My whole body was just buzzing and just feeling really horrible. And I was lying there thinking, I don't know if I'm going to survive until morning, because I really felt like I might die. And so eventually, probably early as the morning, I actually got maybe a couple of hours sleep, and when I woke up, things had settled down. So when that happened, I told a few people, and they're all like, "No, that'll teach you for eating too much chocolate." But I think it was because it was the dark chocolate. And now that I know what I know about oxalate, I'm pretty sure it was because of the oxalate, because dark chocolate or chocolate like cacao is really high in oxalate. And 3 to 5 grams of oxalate, and up to 15 grams of oxalate for different people. So some people it takes more, some people it takes less, can be fatal. And people have died from having too much oxalate. Usually in the one that I know of is in the form of sorrel, which is a vegetable that they eat a lot in the UK. I know of a story of a gent who had sorrel soup, and he passed away in the hospital from oxalate poisoning from the sorrel. So this is why rhubarb leaves are poisonous, because they contain too much oxalic acid. And cooking does not get rid of oxalate. It might lower it slightly, but it doesn't get rid of it. Somebody made a comment on Sally's video the other day about how they cook spinach to get rid of the oxalate, and it doesn't get rid of it. Cooking can get rid of some plant toxins, but oxalate is a very difficult one to actually get rid of. Impossible, as far as I know. So it's in the plant, and if you're eating it, you're going to be ingesting it. If you have some calcium, some dairy with it, that can help, because the oxalate binds to the calcium, and your body's then going to pass it. It's going to pass through your digestive system. But if you're eating it by itself, then that oxalate is, and if it's too much, then your body's going to store it. So a healthy gut, if your gut health is good, you can handle about 200 milligrams of oxalate per day. The kidneys can handle about 25 milligrams per day. If you're having a spinach smoothie, that can be 2,000 milligrams in one hit. So you can see that if you're having that sort of thing with lots of spinach, if you're eating a lot of potatoes, if you're eating a lot of raspberries and chocolate and nuts and those sorts of things, you are probably, and drinking tea, you're probably going to be getting way more oxalate than your body can actually get rid of, and so it's going to be storing it in your body, which is what happened to me. So my history is vegan diet, vegetarian diet, really super high oxalate diet when I look back. Lots of cacao, lots of buckwheat, and potatoes, and sweet potato, and almonds and cashews, and all of these things that are super high in oxalate. And so I was eating massive amounts pretty much every day, and so that's why my oxalate dumping was so rough, I think, right from fairly close to the beginning of my carnivore journey. So some of the common foods that are eaten that contain a lot of oxalate, some of the high oxalate foods, are things like spinach, chard, beet greens, and sorrel. So out of the greens, they are the worst. People will quite often talk about spinach and kale. Kale's not that high in oxalate. Spinach is super high. Potatoes and sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes actually worse than the normal white potatoes. And the white potatoes, it depends on the variety. Different varieties have different amounts of oxalate in them. Peanuts, almonds, cashews are all really high. Out of the seeds, hemp and chia seed are really high. And I mean, they were a huge part of my diet as well for quite a few years. In Australia, I used to put chia seeds into everything. I used to put hemp seeds into everything, because, they're super healthy, aren't they? They've got omega-3 fats, especially when you're not eating animal products. So, like nuts and seeds aren't the best for gut health anyway, because they contain so many plant toxins. There's other plant toxins in them as well. Plants do not want you eating their babies, and so nuts and seeds are their babies, and so they protect them. So they're going to affect your gut health, but they're also, some of them are just super high in oxalate. And oxalate is the thing that people don't know about, that they really need to know about, because if they're consuming a lot of it, you don't know for years and years, and it's just storing up in your body, storing up, and then it eventually starts causing problems. And it can cause joint pain, it can cause muscle pain and soft tissue pain, because the oxalate's being stored in those tissues. It can cause eye health problems, it can cause neurological problems, all sorts of things. So when it comes to legumes, most beans, a lot of beans are pretty high in oxalate. They also contain other plant toxins such as lectins. Of the legumes, the peas are probably the better ones. Sally was saying in this video the other day, chickpeas, etc., are fairly low in oxalate. In the fruit, as I've already mentioned, kiwi fruit are really high. Blackberries, raspberries, and star fruit. So star fruit is super high. Apparently, oxalate poisoning is fairly common in the tropics from star fruit. And I'm so glad that I never juiced those things when we were living in Australia, because I used to buy them and eat them. But I've never actually juiced them, and I'm very thankful for that, because I might have landed myself in the hospital or worse. So some of the spices and herbs contain oxalate, but probably the worst one is turmeric. So turmeric is super high in oxalate, which is interesting because it's touted so much as being an anti-inflammatory, and yet it's got huge amounts of oxalate in it. If you're wanting to use turmeric, you're better off to use curcumin, because it has, which is the extract, and it has less oxalate in it. Also black tea, as I've mentioned, and green tea. Buckwheat and quinoa are really high in oxalate, and chocolate, as I said, cacao. I used to get 1 kilo blocks of cacao and ceremonial cacao just prior to going on to Carnivore for probably about, I was doing that for probably about 18 months before Carnivore, and hubby and I would have a hot drink made with the ceremonial cacao every night, and it has massive amounts of oxalate. So poor old hubby goes through a bit of oxalate dumping as well. I guess jumping straight into a carnivore diet like I did is probably not the best bet. You're going to cause yourself some misery potentially. Some people will start oxalate dumping really quickly, like I did, whereas others, some people will go into carnivore and it might be 5 years down the track that they start oxalate dumping. They might have no problem at all, and then all of a sudden they start oxalate dumping, and it kind of takes them by surprise. I've seen people talk about this online, and it's because it just depends on when your body decides to start getting rid of it, and we don't have any control over that. There's nothing that we can do to really manage that apart from keeping some oxalate in our diet, because if we've got a little bit in our bloodstream, then our bodies are going to pull less out of the tissues. So if you're starting on carnivore and you're worried about the whole oxalate dumping thing, especially if you're prone to kidney stones, I would go slow and just keep some oxalate in there. I mean, if I was to go back and do it again, I would probably just start removing some things out of my diet, the higher oxalate foods, and then just gradually work my way down to the animal products, and just with keeping a little bit of oxalate in. My complete shift from just about all plants to all meat, the oxalate dumping took me by surprise, and it wasn't something that I expected to be as full on as it was. So it can be a pretty wild ride, and it can potentially be dangerous. So it's just something to be mindful of. Don't be scared of it, but just if you're starting to have issues with oxalate dumping, or you think you're going to have oxalate dumping issues, then just keep a little bit of something with some oxalate in your diet and just see how you go. So yeah, so that was basically what I was going to talk about today. I just thought I'd do an update on the whole oxalate dumping thing and just provide a little bit more information. As I said, if you want to know more about this, grab a copy of Sally Norton's book. The link is below. It is a really good resource, and for anyone who's having real issues with oxalate dumping on their carnivore diet or even on a low oxalate diet, that is worthwhile actually having a read of. So yeah, if you've got any comments or questions, put them down below and I'll get to them as soon as I can. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share with anyone you think might be interested. I thank you very much for watching, and I will talk to you again another day. Bye for now.